Okay, this is the Palooka Watch channel, and I'm Mike. Welcome back. Today, I just want to talk about these watches here as far as money goes, because you know, I don't know if you're like me, but I like divers. I like watches that are made tough, have good water resistance, can handle abuse. I'm a blue collar guy. That all makes sense for me. Now, the watch that you're looking at that's on your left is the Momentum Quartz 30. This is a redo of a watch that came about in the 1970s, the late 1970s, which was the Chronosport Quartz. And that happened to be a watch that Magnum PI, the character, Tom Selleck's character on the TV show, wore for the first 3 seasons. It's just something I wanted. This is a Canadian company, and they do a great job with this watch. It's got a sapphire crystal. It has a Swiss quartz movement in it. It has a stated 300-meter water resistance. It has a stainless steel case, locking screw down crown. You can see how nicely tucked that crown is on here. The lume on this is great. It's a great watch, and you'd be hard pressed to say too many bad things about it. Okay, now I bought this used. Actually, I don't remember what I spent on it. I should have looked that up. But it was in the $200 range, I believe, when I picked this up. Could have been a little bit more. I just wanted it. All right. It has a day-date feature with a color-matched wheel to the dial. You can't see it right now because the hour hand is blocking that out, but you can kind of see it underneath there. Now, this watch here is a watch from AliExpress. Now, if you were on eBay and you were looking up dive watches, you will see this kind of listed as a Royal Navy diver from the time period of the 1970s or 80s. This case is the same case. It's a stainless steel case, stainless steel screw-in crown, or back, screw-down locking crown. They both have the rubber O-rings. See how protected that crown is. And let's wipe some dust off this for you. Also a quartz movement. It's supposed to be a Japanese Miyota movement. Personally, I like the hands on this better. Now, this watch I bought cost me a total of just under $81. And it came from China, and that was back in the spring. The battery went dead on me, so I just brought it over to Mike at Majestic Watch and Jewelry on Larchmont Boulevard in Los Angeles, and he swapped the battery out for me real quick. And I said, dude, I want you to open this up and tell me what you think of it. And I also brought this to him. I wanted to get a comparison from a real watch person. All right, this is a man that works on Omegas and Rolexes and all of it. And we're going to talk about that in a moment too. What he told me was the movement in this watch is about a $14 movement. That's his cost. He said it used to be a $4 movement. He said that this one, because it has the date feature, it's a $14 movement. And he says it's not serviceable. So you just replace the movement if you wanted to. We think it's a sapphire crystal on the site, and I will provide a link to this watch in the description below if you're interested. Because right now on AliExpress, you can get this watch for $62. $62. Keep in mind, when I got this, I did have an issue. The second hand was floating around on the dial. It had fallen off. I brought over to the watch shop, and in a couple moments, they had the second hand on there, and there wasn't any more problems. Since then, it's been great. I recently put on my 21st Century 5-buckle NATO strap. He opened this up, and he says, yes, it's a Swiss movement. However, this also has no jewels. It's not technically really a serviceable movement. And he said his cost on this movement is about $40. So let's think about this for a moment. Now, there's one on eBay right now, a Momentum Quartz 30. The bidding is at about $180, $190. It's going to go up from there. People are asking close to $400 to $500 for that watch. I neglected to look at the website to see what they're selling for there. But I believe they're in the $300 to $400 price range. They might be more. I forget, and I apologize. But that exact number doesn't matter. What I'm just thinking about is the cost versus the specs and what you get out of it, and what do you really want it for. Now, obviously, there's a bunch of people already screaming at me going, hey man, the Momentum's always going to be worth money. You can always get your money back on that. It might be worth more money in the future. That is all 100% true. I highly doubt this watch is ever going to be really worth anything, much more than what you can get it for now. So I get that. I'm just saying. They're both stainless steel cases. They're both solid back, screw down backs with O-rings. Same thing with the locking screw-in crowns. Both stated 300 meter water resistance, sapphire crystal. This could be a Hardlex on their site. Like, it's a little ambiguous because they say they're going to be coming with the sapphire. This one does feel like sapphire, I can tell you, just super hard glass, real clear. The lume is comparable between them. Obviously, the lume on the Momentum C Quartz lasts a little bit longer. So it's just a thought process of, you know, if you want a decent quality watch that's pretty good at water resistance, that has good legibility. And as I look at both of these dials, I mean, the one on the right here, it's more easily legible. I like the C Quartz 30. I like that the 12, 6, and 9 is much larger and it's fully loomed, versus this where just the indices are loomed. But I prefer the hour and minute hands on this less expensive model. So it was just a thought. I wanted him to give me his opinion on the movements and what he thought. I have another watch coming that is also a MWC that I'm going to be sharing a link with. It's going to take a couple weeks to get here. It's coming from Ireland. This is a man that he buys out, you know, contract runs. So, you know, governments all over the world contact WMC and they have them make them watches to certain specs. It's an all black, including the case, black PVD case, with a really good technology that hardens and makes the metal stay black. It's very hard to take the black off, and it was at an incredible deal, and it is supposedly a Swiss quartz movement that has a few jewels in it, so it's a more high quality Swiss. This that you're looking at right now is an automatic movement. Now, if you guys will recall, I got this for used for $96. And this watch sells for about $400 on their website. And, you know, single dome, thick sapphire glass. I love this watch. It's the one I've been wearing the most lately. So, as we know, I'm just a watch nerd now, totally consumed by it. And having said that, I just wanted to give you this to think about. If you're interested in this watch, you want a cool watch that looks pretty cool. The only issue with this one, they're all going to be probably a little bit different. The bezel's a little loose. It's a 60-click bezel. Easy way to tell is you start at the 12 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it was a little off there, so 5 gets you about there. But it's basically a click for every minute on the on the minute track going around the outside there. Once it locks, there's no playback. But if you tap it, you can get a little looseness there. This would be 120 click. But it's, you know, it's loose. I mean, it's not loose like, well, I mean, you can see there, it does have a little, you can move this just a bit in here, but it's pretty tight. Which you would expect. You want this to be a better quality watch. I mean, it costs you a lot more money. But again, if you're budget conscious and you're looking for a watch that's pretty cool, you know, this is a kind of a copied style from the 70s, and you just can't beat it at that price. That's just my personal opinion. I think it's pretty neat. Now, hang on a second here. All right. It's warm in this kitchen today, man. I'm sweating. So, I just want to say thanks for everybody who's here and watching the Palooka Watch channel. And it turns out, I went into the shop the other day. Again, this is Mike. Mr. Majestic, that's what I like to call him. Majestic WJ, Majestic Watches and Jewelry on Larchmont. He's just 2 blocks away. I can walk there, right around the corner. I've been spending a lot of time in the watch shop. You learn so much there. And it's a family business. They're great human beings, great people. And I went in there the other day, and they said, hey, we got a call from a guy. I think they said Washington State, maybe Oregon. I don't know who you are. Feel free to chime in the comments. But he called, and he's sending down a Rolex to be serviced by Mike. And that's a really cool thing. Thanks for trusting me. I don't think you're going to regret it. I asked Mike today about that. Now, he and I have had the conversation before about Rolex and Omegas and, you know, all these other high quality watches. I've been in there when people have come in to pick up their watches for a service. You know, not needing new parts, a service could be $600, $700, $800 on these higher end watches. I brought in an Omega, a vintage Seamaster, I think it is. I could have that wrong. I think it's from like 1950, 53, in that range. And they're going to give a buddy of mine a little bit of a break on that, I suppose. At least I thought they were. They were planning to if it was just a service. But it turns out that there was a broken part, which I took a picture of and I sent it to him. They got to find that part for him. But I talked to him about Rolex specifically, and he gave me a lot of really good information I figured I would share with you. So to be a certified Rolex technician, you go through this process with Rolex, and it's a questionnaire and a test to make sure you know everything. And to keep up your certification with Rolex, you got to do that every 4 years, and it's about $2,000. At least that's what it used to be. And Mike did that for decades. Mike's older than I am. Hard to believe. I think Mike's like 63, somewhere in that range. Great guy. You know, there's a video playing all the time in there where he's breaking down these high-end watches and reconstructing them, and he's a real watch person. Obviously, he's been doing it a long, long time. And he no longer does the certification with Rolex because he doesn't need to. And what you know, if you hang out around watch people in a watch shop, it's like I'm hanging out in a cigar lounge, right? Or hanging out in a motorcycle shop, or hanging out in a tattoo parlor. Which I've done in my life. I've done that. You know, for long periods of time, I've hung out in tattoo parlors. I've hung out in motorcycle shops, mechanic shops. You know, I've hung out in cigar lounges. When you hang out in a place like that, you get all this insider baseball, all this knowledge, and the people there, that's their thing, man. And that's all they talk about. It's why I can't do it forever, because I gain all this knowledge and I meet all these people, but then I'm like, okay, I need something else in my mind, because it's same thing with bicycles. Hang out in a bike shop, you know, or hanging out with bicycle people. That's all they want to talk about, and it's the monolithic subject matter. I can't just talk about one thing. As you guys know, the ADD is real. Look at the channel. Look how diverse it is. But what you learn is that if you have, let's just say Rolex, for the sake of the discussion, and you bring it to a store that sells Rolexes, where you could go and bring your watch because it needs a servicing. The way it works is that they're going to take that watch, and you're going to fill out a form, and they're going to note everything about that watch that you can visually see right then and there. And then they're going to send that watch to a certified Rolex mechanic, let's call it, which is not going to be a guy in Switzerland. They might tell you they're sending it to Switzerland, but they are not sending it to Switzerland. Okay? This is just how it works. They're going to send it to a guy like Mike, maybe, right? If he had done his certification process and he was working with Rolex. Again, doesn't do that anymore. So that guy is going to tell the shop, you know, this is what you have to charge the customer, and then the shop's going to pay that guy about a third, like 30% of what that cost is, and that shop's going to make most of the money. And that guy is just sitting in his shop, wherever that is. It could be at home. You could be certified Rolex mechanic and work from home if you go through that process. And that's how that works. So it's just, I find that whole thing interesting. Again, with Mike, he's done it. So I've seen it. I've seen Rolexes in there. I've seen Omegas. I've seen Patek Philippe's in there. Panerais, you name it. So, yeah, super expensive. He's had watches in there for $100,000 or more, and I've seen them. I've held them in my hands. You know, it's cool, really neat. When we were talking about these quartz movements, he pulled out one that came out of a Cartier, and he's like, you know, I forgot what he said to me. I don't want to lie. I don't want to guess either, but it was like, I think the movement was several $100s, and it was so tiny, but you could see all the jewels in it and all the polished brass, and you know, it's like, it's so intricate and well made. And until I met Mike and started hanging out in a watch shop, I had no idea that there could be quartz movements where just the movement could be worth several $100s or $1,000, or more. It's crazy. But I just wanted to say thanks for having confidence in me and what I'm saying. I wouldn't talk up anybody that I wasn't confident about. You know, and I said it in a video recently, one of my most recent videos, where people that I like to hang out with that do something, they have a trade, blue collar guys, the watch guy, the cigar people, whatever it is. I'm not hanging out with hacks. I'm hanging out with people that are good at what they do. So rest assured, your watch is gonna work out fine. They'll do a great job on it. I don't know what the condition is. Whoever you are, again, make a comment down there, and I'll tell you this: when the watch comes in, I'll be in there at some point, and they'll tell me. They'll say, "Hey, this is the guy's watch." So what I'll do for you and for everybody else watching, for those of you who are curious and follow along with the Palooka Watch channel, I'll take a picture of it, and maybe I'll do a little short video discussing, hey, this is the watch that was sent in by a subscriber, and here's what I found out about it, and here's what's happening, and be pretty neat for you, because without that you wouldn't know. You'd just be sending your watch somewhere, and then you'd eventually get a call when it was done. So I'll do that for you, because it also helps me out here with the content, and I think it's kind of fun, and it's just nice for this community. It's one of those things that I did it for the bicycle community when I was building the clunkers. There's going to be some more bicycle stuff coming. I've done it for the Astrovan community, where I figured out stuff and worked with other people and had parts made, and now they're available to people, just trying to help out the community, just giving advice, talking about tools, whatever it is. It's just because I want to help you, coming from the perspective of somebody who's doing the stuff and working directly with the people and all of that. Because when I've tried to do this through social media and forums and like Facebook groups and that sort of thing, it's a lot harder. There's just too many people there with personalities and egos and all this weird, and not all the information you're getting is accurate. Everything is subjective. It's just based on their personal experience with this. You could have a lemon, man. Perfect example of that is the Captain Willard watches, the reissues by Seiko. And that green one that I own, the green on green, it's a great watch. My buddy Chad has the same watch. Now, he was setting the time one day, and he pulled out the crown, and the crown and the whole stem and everything pulled out of the watch. That's not normal. And so I was asking him, why aren't you wearing it? He said, well, I'm going to send it to Seiko. It needs a service. So why don't you let me take it to Mike? So we brought it to Mike, and Mike pushed it back in, set it, looked at it, said, there's nothing wrong with this. Just went right back in. Okay, so now Chad's been wearing it. If you don't know, Chad owns a, matter of fact, it's Chad's Omega that's in there now being worked on. He wears a Rolex now, right? All day long, beating on it. Doing machine work, working on bicycles, doing his fence. Beating on a Rolex. It's already beat up and scratched, but that's his life, that's his watch, that's what he does. And that's what he was doing to the Seiko. So I went over his house, and he showed me the watches, and I picked up the Omega, and what I didn't know was it was a bumper automatic, which means the rotor inside the watch, if I spin this in my hand, what am I doing? It's a quartz. I just tried to spin a quartz, which won't do it. But here, I don't know if you probably can't hear that on camera, but you can feel the rotor spins 360 degrees, and you could spin this in both directions, and it'll wind both ways. With that Omega, you do this, and the rotor just goes to one side, and it hits a bump. You go to the other side, it hits a bump. So when you do that, it feels like there's something broken in it. I thought there was something wrong with it. I said, dude, you gotta let me bring this to Mike. He said, I need that anyhow, because it's really not running right. He got it inexpensively. I think he got it for a few $100s. And I picked up his Seiko, and I spun it just like I just showed you. And I heard click, 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 click. I'm like, holy crap, something's wrong there. Your rotor's hitting something. So I brought him the mic, and they took the Omega, and they're working on that now. Again, I was in there a couple days ago, and it was all in pieces, and it was being serviced by Mike's son, Vartan. And he's doing a great job. He showed me the broken part, all of it. But the same day when I brought both those watches in, Mike took the Seiko, the Willard, opened up the back as I was talking to Vartan. We're having a good time. We're men being men, cracking jokes. I make these guys laugh. They like having me in there. It's cool. I'm also extra security in there. I mean, they're dealing with high-end watches, a lot of gold, jewels, because he repairs jewelry as well. So you can imagine. They're armed and all of it. They've got security cameras, but they know me and how I walk around prepared. So they actually like having me there for that. I'll even walk out people sometimes to their car. Some old person, who's got a bunch of money on him. So, at any rate, as I was saying, he fixed the Seiko while I was talking to Vartan. It only took a couple moments. He opened it up. He found that something had backed out. So I didn't ask him, but it was like a screw or something had backed out. He didn't point out the exact part to me. But he put it all back together, and the rotor spun freely, and he gave it back to me. I took the watch home. I still have it here. I'm going to bring it back to Chad. I put it on one of these 21st Century NATO's for him. If he doesn't like it, I'll put it back on the rubber for him. I just want him to try it. He was skeptical of it. So I set the time on that before I left for my Arizona trip. I was messing with it, and when I tried to wind it wouldn't mind. And I pulled out the crown, I put it back in, and then it wound, and I thought, something's not right with that. Since I've been back, I've been keeping it running every day. I've been winding it, and it has a 70-hour power reserve, that movement. But I'm keeping it running for him, so when I do bring it back to him, it'll be set correct. But when it didn't wind, after all the issues we had, again, he pulled it out, stem came out completely, the rotor was hitting something in there. I described how hard Chad is on his watches. He's just working, beating the crap out of him. He doesn't care. Beats on, showers in them, never takes it off, sleeps in it. They're cruddy. Man, when I get one of his watches from him to bring it to Mike, I scrub it for him and clean it. When he gets it back, it looks like a new watch, because I think that's disgusting. But it's just dirt and grime from wearing a watch. So I called him up, I did the research on it, and the movement in that Seiko, that Willard, this is in the original Seiko moves, they're priced, the range is pretty crazy, like $160, $70 to like $300 for that movement, versus like an NH36, this would be an NH35, that you can get that movement for $30-$40, but what I said to him was like, dude, instead of trying to service that movement and get it running right, buy the original Seiko replacement movement for $200-$300, and I can bring it over there, and in 5 minutes they can have that movement in that watch and put back together, and you'll be golden. And the whole point of this is pointing out how quality control and all that, it's likely, he did buy that new, it's likely that watch was a lemon. There was just something wrong with it, and that's just how it is. It's like when I was a kid in high school, I remember this teacher. He was really full of himself. I wonder if I caught some of that. Is that contagious, being full of yourself? That's just for those of you who think that of me. I mean, you'd enjoy that as a joke. One of the things he told us was that when you buy a new car, look at the sticker on it. You don't want a car that came out on a Monday or a Friday. You don't want it on a Monday because they just been partying, drinking all weekend. They don't want to be there Monday morning. And you don't want one that came out of the factory on a Friday because everybody wants to get the hell out of work and go party. So they're not paying attention as much. And I think that that's probably the case to a certain degree when it comes to everything. Watches and everything else. They're being assembled by human beings, right? So that can happen. Now, when he first got that watch, if he had a problem with it initially, he could have brought it back to the shop, sent it to Seiko, whatever. They might have replaced it for free. That's not going to happen now, because when you visually look at that watch, you can see the abuse it's taken. So they wouldn't do that, I'm sure. At any rate, that's where we're at. So again, you can spend the money on a good one. You can spend hundreds of dollars on a decent Quartz watch, or you could spend $62 on one and it'll do what you want it to do, and be happy and be guilt-free and beat on it. It won't have any intrinsic value later down the road. This one is always going to be worth something. And who knows, one day, 10, 15 years from now, this watch might actually be worth 2 or 3 times what you pay for it now. That's the difference. As long as you don't beat on it too much. Having said that, there's a thing in the watch community with used watches and certain classics where if they are beat up, they still command a number, and some people actually prefer that because they like seeing the age to it, especially military style watches. People like to imagine, hey, it was worn by somebody doing really cool badass stuff, and I understand that. So that's all I wanted to say. A little long-winded as usual, but that is it for now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Come back again, tell your friends, be good to one another, and I'll catch you all in the next one.